Good morning. It is 9 o'clock on Tuesday, September the 8th, and the Commissioners Court of Kerr County is now in session. I want to remind everyone, feel free to leave your phones on, but put them on vibrate so that they don't disturb the proceedings. The next part of the agenda is the public input. This is the opportunity that the public has to address the court on topics that are not on the agenda. If they're on the agenda, we ask that you address the court when the agenda item is called. There's a number that you can call if you would like to address the court, which is 830-792-6161. That phone is right here with me, be right by the microphone. If anyone would like to address the court, this would be the opportunity. See if anybody calls in. Meanwhile, let's go to Commissioner's comments. Precinct 1.
3 inches of rain.
Good.
How much?
Very nice. 3 since Thursday.
2.
No, 1. 1 inch of rain, not 2.
Still good.
Still good, and we appreciate it. Let's see, a couple of things. There's a hearing tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. with TCEQ on water extraction pumping out of the river by Wheatcraft. There's a permit application there. The burn ban is off, even though only 1 inch of rain. We took the burn ban off in Precinct 2, and good news economically in Precinct 2. Killdeer Mountain Manufacturing is coming there, and Mooney has got new ownership. So, good things.
All good.
Yes, all good.
Precinct 3.
We've had a little over 2 inches of rain, so somewhere in between. Very happy with it, and looks like a lot more on the forecast this week, which is good news. Burn ban is off, and I think Brent mentioned this last week that forgot that large metal building in Comfort. It's on the interstate that it's been empty for a while. It has a new business has bought it. They were removing their. I'm not allowed to release the name yet of who it is. They will be announced probably next week publicly. They will be hiring. At some point, they'll be getting up to 250 employees.
Wow.
And a lot of those employees are likely going to come out of Kerr County. It will be, it's a manufacturing company. It's coming moving up a plant, family-owned company, opening up a plant here. They're currently out in, and they are from California. The company is, but they're opening a plant here.
Wow. Fantastic. It'll be announced next week?
It should be announced next week.
Good deal.
More good economic news.
Very good. Good deal.
Precinct 4.
Well, you know, Precinct 4's rather large. Our rainfall was varied. Hunt people got over 2 inches, and Divide people got just a little over a half total. And while people were calling for me to lift the burn ban, they were fighting a grass fire on Friday. So it's a little bit different, and I rely on all 4 of the fire chiefs to let me know when to put it on or take it off, and they weren't ready at this point. And I think it's important people know that it's ideal condition for the people in Hunt to burn, but just over the couple hills it wasn't. So that's why it stayed on. So that's all I got.
Good. Well, on the countywide basis, I've been asked to give kind of an update report on what we're doing with the Capital Improvement Planning Committee. First of all, let me say that with regard to the Earl Garrett properties, the 550 Earl Garrett is the 2-story office building that needs to be made ADA compliant. We've met with the owners, and they are in the process of contracting with the contractor to come in and put in the elevator and redo the bathrooms and make the outside stair fire escape on the building. So that we expect that to probably kick off in the next couple of weeks. We had a meeting last Wednesday and discussed frustration with the availabilities of properties. Some properties are available, some aren't. We've been able to make some progress with some, not so much with others. The committee is actively in the process of reviewing additional locations for the animal control facility. That is still a top priority for the committee. Just wanted to report that we are actively looking for other locations to be able to do that. Another top priority that we have is the West Kerr Annex, and we're meeting with the landlord this week. We're also in the process of trying to negotiate something and looking for alternatives in the event that we can't successfully close on a deal. But it is very much the intention of the committee to recommend that we prioritize and keep that West Kerr courthouse annex open. On a different note, I should have said when we're looking for other locations, we're looking for other locations to locate road and bridge if we need to move. So that's also something that's on the table. And then we have some interest from the public to buy some property that the county owns, which is always kind of interesting. We've got some interest in where our maintenance location is, which is always nice. That's an expensive piece of property over there, good commercial property. And if we were to sell that property, then those funds would be used to offset the improvements that we're making. So that's a good alternative for us to have. And likewise, with the animal control facility, we're looking at probably a bigger location than where we are, which would mean that the location where the existing animal control facility is would open up, and we've had some interest expressed in that property as well. So it looks like we're making progress.
In Ranchero Road.
In Ranchero Road. We're going to sell that one too.
Well, it's to be considered, right?
So that's, I think that covers all the commissioners' comments. Let's move on to our consideration agenda. Item 1.1 is to consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the hazard pay policy for Kerr County. And I think I've got everyone here. We have a de facto hazard pay review committee that has been working on this since this whole hazard pay issue arose. And that's consisted of Commissioner Letts and myself, along with our county auditor, Tanya Shelton, and our HR director, Jennifer Doss. And so the work product that you see there is a group work product. I want to make that clear. This is not Jennifer Doss's product. And so I wanted to get that on the record so she doesn't get called out about it. And we met a couple of times. I can't remember, we probably met 3 times. We met 2 times last week and once the week before. But last week we met, I think it was on a Wednesday afternoon, and felt pretty good about where we were with the policy. And then came to work the next morning to find out that the Treasury Department had issued updated guidelines on what we could and couldn't do for hazard pay, and with regard to the CARES Act, the Coronavirus Relief Fund. So we had to sit down and tweak the policy again Thursday afternoon. And so the product you see in front of you now is our best recommendation on hazard pay. And if you'll note, I kind of go through them with you one at a time. We start off with the proposition that everything has to be related to the COVID-19 crisis and situation. And one of the things that we've learned is various departments and offices have the opportunity to mitigate their exposures better than other departments do. So the first thing we did was recommend that it be the county policy that all Kerr County employees are required to mitigate COVID-19 exposure if possible. And we understand that there are situations where it's not possible, and that is recognized as part of the considerations in awarding hazard pay.
Can I make one comment before we go too much further into this? This law enforcement is different a little bit than this policy. I know the sheriff's here. And law enforcement comes under there's some other guidelines that have been with law enforcement. So what we did with law enforcement is still valid. There'll be a tweak on that wording a little bit, but this policy is basically for all county employees with the exception of law enforcement.
And that really is the sheriff's office and the jail.
How about animal control?
No,
This would apply.
this applies to them. No, when the
enforce-
judge goes through this, they will
Yeah,
qualify. The other areas, departments and individuals and county employees will qualify.
yeah, I understand.
Yeah, but they're not.
But animal control, now I'm talking about law enforcement, they have some law enforcement, or is that city in their ordinances? It's the only reason I'm bringing that question up.
Yeah, it's I think it's easier for them to qualify under this policy
Okay,
than the blanket policy.
okay.
Anyway, that was policy number 1. Policy number 2 is that the positions able to mitigate by use of personal protective equipment, to include use of masks, plexiglass barriers, physical distancing, or working remotely, are not eligible for hazard pay. So we wanted to clarify right off the bat, try to make as sharp a line as we can. And then we move on to number 3, which we've talked about before, and that is that for a position to qualify, this is being done on a position-by-position basis. For a position must serve in one of the following capacities: public safety, which of course is law enforcement, we talked about that before, public health, human services, or other eligible employees performing COVID-19 related duties. That's that substantially dedicated discussion that we had last week. And then number 4 is the hazard pay is applicable for those positions performing, and here are the key phrases: hazardous duty or work involving physical hardship. And that has been reconfirmed several times now by Treasury Department as the controlling definition and guideline for hazard pay. Number 5 is that the hazard pay will be based upon whether there's a limited ability for the hazard to be mitigated due to the employee's job duties and responsibilities, which puts them at significantly greater risk. So when you're talking about animal control, you can see there are going to be situations where they're going to have significant greater risk. That would be a consideration. Number 6, a risk of additional hazardous duties or physical hardship working with the public must exist. There's got to be something in addition to your regular duties. Number 7, the duties performed must be above and beyond the regular duties due to COVID-19. Number 8, hazard pay is only applicable for the time frame in which the job being performed is substantially dedicated to COVID-related duties. And then number 9, Kerr County.
Well, what is a
Question on that, is that-
COVID-related duty? That should
A
be
good
defined.
example of that is elections. When they're out there at the polling things, they're forced to be with the public, again, working with the public.
Well, that's a odd choice of words.
Well, but the guidelines specifically require that whatever it is must be related to COVID-19.
And they're having,
The duty.
their duties are more hazardous because of
Well,
COVID-19.
if it's related to COVID-19, I'm taking somebody's temperature and messing around with stuff. If I'm just dealing with people, I'm maybe at risk of exposure, but it's not specific. That's to me a poor choice of words.
Well, this is the opportunity for the court to clarify the wording.
Well, I think it should be clarified, because if as I say, if I have to handle something, I have to take people's temperature, be exposed directly, then that's one thing. And that would be direct exposure, which is what I read this to be. So I think it ought to be a little clearer, since people are gonna want it.
Which part needs to be
The
clear?
last part, I don't have it in front of me, the last thing that the judge
I think it's under
read.
tab 1, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
I didn't get it.
yeah, it's in your, well,
In the backup.
it's in the backup.
Thank you.
I think we were talking about number 7,
Number 8.
number 8 is one that, both of them.
COVID-related duties.
Yeah, and you'll say due to or related duties. We lifted that language straight from the Treasury guidelines. And I'm not going to tell.
In the one above it, you have in 7, duties due to.
Yes.
That's a different
Well,
definition. This is.
I'm not sure we tried to make a mental distinction between that wording, to tell you the truth, Commissioner.
Well, it's certainly red flagged for me. COVID-related duties, that's like in the trenches kind of stuff. That's not just coming in contact with people.
Judge, we do have a, he does
I would think of that
I
as
thought it
somebody,
was 1.2.
I know.
Okay.
a medical worker
Okay.
or something.
Well, I'm just reading from the guidelines. It says, performing hazardous duty or work involving physical hardship that in each case is related to COVID-19. I'm quoting that right out of the guidelines. We've struggled with what some of the guidelines mean too.
Sure.
But in terms of the policy, We can reword this to say due to COVID-19. In my mind, that means the same thing. But there's got to be a causal connection with COVID.
Well, if you're gonna have this COVID-related duties, you're gonna need a list of what those are. So I would suggest changing that to the wording in the previous.
In the guidance for state, territorial, local, and tribal governments that was updated September the 2nd, there's some language there that might make it clearer in one of the sentences.
Which one are we under? What page?
It's page 1.
Okay.
Heather, a suggestion. I'll watch YouTube. I said, they can't hear you on YouTube when you sit over there and talk. So you
Okay.
might go to the
Well,
podium.
Okay. I can't look at both of the things I need to
Well,
look
but they
at.
can't hear you, so.
That's okay.
Oh, that's okay.
You may change that language. Judge, are you looking at the coronavirus relief fund guidance? Do you have that in front of you by any chance?
I do.
Yes. So there, under the bold part about mid-page, that first sentence toward the end, it may be helpful to clarify what Commissioner Blue is asking about, to maybe use something along the lines of what this says, actions taken to respond to the public health emergency. So, may I?
I don't know.
So if you take number 8 and change it to substantially dedicated, job being performed is substantially dedicated in responding to the public health emergency, that might clarify. So the example that Commissioner Letts had was the elections folks. So they're having to change sort of how that looks because they're responding to the public health emergency. So using some of that language just might help clarify. Does that make you feel any better about it?
But to get your legal opinion, if I have that wording in there in number 8, wouldn't I really by necessity need a list of what that means? What duties
It would
those
help
are?
clear it up. You're right. It would help clear
Okay,
it
so
up.
if we can eliminate that and put something that, like you said, if I'm called upon to do something, if and when, that changes it in my mind.
Well, literally what that definition says is for those employees that are substantially dedicated to responding to or mitigating COVID-19. And that is the causal connection. So when we talk about responding or
says-
mitigating is what she's saying, adding those two words, those two.
But you've not been
Verbs.
assigned duty specifically to deal with that. That was my point.
Well, I think
Well, I think they probably have.
Not if you're at the elections.
So what it sounds like is that
They
their
have to.
job is changing because
The
they're
elections
responding to
personnel
it.
have to mitigate that environment for the public to try to keep them from being exposed to COVID-19 while they're there voting.
We just don't have mitigated in that number 8.
Well, we can put
Yeah,
mitigators
I
on.
just suggest a little word change is all it is.
Yeah.
I don't think we have any duty assigned in this courthouse that specifically requires somebody to go and engage with someone and or be exposed to, potential to be exposed to COVID-19. That is not a specific duty
Well,
here.
I think there's somebody at the back of the room in a red shirt that would disagree with you on that.
Nobody in Rusty, okay, that's a good example. Nobody in Rusty's department is specifically assigned to do it. They run the risk of doing it, but it's not part of the duty.
We actually do. We try and get anybody coming in if we're down here. to
If
get
you
them
know
out.
they already do it, but it's not, it's a potential, it's a potential hazard. It's not, somebody in the COVID unit at the hospital, that's part of their duty, to deal with those people. You run the risk of dealing with those people. And I just think that it's a poor choice of wording, that's all.
I think we're a little bit off. The intent of this number 8 is to say that someone like elections or someone who's working with jury, all of their pay doesn't go up. It's only the time
Yeah.
they're at that location. That's what
Sure.
we're trying to say.
Okay.
So if we need to me, the important part of that one is really the first part of it. If we need to say substantially dedicated to responding to public health emergency, that's not changing, to me, the meaning, and I'm fine with that.
Well, I want to use the word COVID, because that's what the guideline says, and
Yeah, that's gotta fit.
to COVID-19 public
Yeah.
health emergency.
Yeah. But I'm certainly amenable to using the language of the guideline itself that says responding to or mitigating COVID-19.
I just think that would be better.
I do too.
So what's it gonna read?
Let me reread it. Number 8, hazard pay is only applicable for the time frame in which the job being performed is substantially dedicated to responding or mitigating COVID-19. And
I
I've
think
deleted
that's
related
good.
duties.
That helps.
Good.
Okay?
Good improvement.
And then finally, the last part of the policy is that the Kerr County personnel files should contain supporting documentation showing the hazardous duty or the physical hardship for each employee receiving hazard pay. This is the paper trail that we need to create for those federal auditors.
Okay.
And just for the public's information, last week the sheriff brought in 116 pages of supporting documentation that we now have in the file. And you will see in our handout materials, we've also contacted Tatum and have gotten a green light so far with what we're trying to do. So,
Good.
and that's the kind of documentation that we will be doing on all hazard pay recipients going forward. So that is basically what it is. And I apologize, I thought you were here on 1.1, but let me call Mr. Kent Feldman on item 1.1. Would you like to address the court?
First of all, I want to apologize because I'm not very articulate and
You can take your mask off if you want.
You can take your mask off to address the court when you're speaking.
Thank you.
I'd like to apologize because I'm not very articulate and I might say one or two swear words and I wasn't raised that way and I apologize to the ladies here if I do. And here's something good to know for a man. That don't look like Roy Bean to me. But man, I don't know, this hazardous pay thing, it looked like a despicable thing to me for the county. We have people out there every day that are helping us, trying to help us, and they're not getting hazardous pay. And they're a whole lot more likely to get COVID-19 than somebody in the sheriff's office or in the jail. I believe this man, he said to hell with the governor's mandate on masks and everything. Says the governor has more men than he does. Why aren't we asking the governor for the free money? I think they got more money than we do.
Well, Mr. Feldman, let me explain where this money comes from. Congress, the United States Congress, enacted the CARES Act, and they have a fund. They call it.
I can't understand you. I can hear you, but I'm sorry, I don't hear.
The money that we have has been subdelegated to the local governments by the state of Texas. The money came through the state of Texas.
I just think it's a terrible precedent you're setting, and you're going to do what you want to do. So, and before I sit down or leave, I wanted to thank you for 3 or 4 months ago. You had another man come in here, had his hand out for free money on a big real estate deal. And you did the right thing on that. In my opinion, you did the right thing on that. You got rid of that real damn quick. I hope you do the right thing today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
This money doesn't come directly from Kerr County taxpayers, is what the judge was saying. It does come from all of us because it's federal funds, but it's not coming out of the Kerr County budget to do this. That was what he was saying.
Is there anything in
I
this?
pay the federal government tax. I
Right.
pay everybody taxes and I get
Yeah.
squatted on pretty bad. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is
Thank
there
you, Mr.
anything
Feldman.
in this hazard pay policy It says this is applicable only during the emergency declaration.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think,
You know, I don't know if we put that in there or not, but that certainly was our understanding as we were working on it.
right.
Sure.
Well, because we can eliminate the emergency declaration, almost every commissioner's court, we vote, leave it in place. Okay, since it's been in place since March. So as soon as we say we're no longer under that emergency declaration, this would go away.
That's one of the reasons we left it.
Well, I just want to make sure it's in there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's-
Yeah, because of stuff like this.
I think we probably ought to clarify that as a new number one,
Okay,
Yeah.
or,
I think it ought to go in those definitions at the bottom where we have public safety, public health,
okay.
and condition, because those are overarching terms for the whole program.
okay,
Right, that's fine.
So we'll add that.
okay.
A new number one on the
No.
hazard pay
No.
policy?
No.
It's going to be after number 9.
Those at the bottom, Harley.
Okay, I see.
Yeah,
It's going to be only during the declaration of disaster.
emergency declaration, right. As established by the court.
Good catch.
Okay. My only other comment, the committee did a good job. It's very,
Yes.
very, very well thought through.
Well, and then the next page, so that everybody knows, is the process that we're recommending of how to make and determine hazard pay. You can see that in the process, number 1 is each department head or elected official must explain in writing how the position qualifies, whether by public safety, public health, human services, or similar employees whose services are substantially dedicated to mitigating or responding to COVID-19, per our hazard pay policy. So we get the department heads or the elected officials are the ones that make the recommendation. Number 2, each department head or elected official must explain in writing the position's hazardous duty or physical hardship as it relates to COVID-19 per the policy. In other words, we've got to have that causal connection. Number 3, each department head or elected official must explain in writing how the position is limited in their ability for the hazard to be mitigated due to the employee's job duties and responsibilities, which puts them at significantly greater risk. Number 4, the recommendation must be accompanied by a copy of the position's job description. Number 5, all requests must be submitted to the Human Resources Director to be reviewed and approved by the Hazard Pay Review Committee, which were the 4 of us. Should the committee need further clarification, the elected official or department head will offer additional clarification to the Human Resources Director to then be shared with the review committee. Upon the Hazard Review Committee's case-by-case determination for recommendation, the request for the position's hazard pay will be taken before the full court for final approval. Should the department head or elected official disagree with the court's decision, they may appeal directly to Commissioner's Court.
Should be committee's decision.
Committee decision.
I like this. It creates a very good paper trail all the way through, so.
And it's designed to be fair and uniform to all concerned.
Okay.
Back to, excuse me.
No,
Go ahead. Back to the concern the gentleman had in the funding of this, and we have 1.4 million, is that correct, associated with this? Where do we stand, and I don't know if this be part of the hazard duty or not, where do we stand on funds that have been, expenses identified associated with 1.4 million? I don't want us to run out of money with hazardous pay because we're
We're watching it, trust me.
Yeah.
Yeah, our estimate through the end of the grant for the hazard pay that's been approved so far is about 500,000. On top of that, for all the PPE and all of the other items that we've spent money on through this time, it's running about 160,000. I don't think we've updated that yet for the month of August.
okay.
And so we're keeping up with that monthly. So
Okay.
this would put us at about,
And
700,000.
to break that down into percentages, we still have over half of the funds that have been designated by the federal government that have been awarded to us
Okay.
through the state of Texas available.
We're in good shape.
The reason I bring that up is, and I've said it before, is, you know, and I know the sheriff brought in the reference to $5 an hour. That's $10,000 a year based on full-time employment. That's like a 20% increase in pay, okay? I think it's high, okay? I just want to make sure that Kerr County taxpayers are not, in my judgment, paying a really large amount for hazard duty pay, percentage-wise to what their duties are, so, but we're keeping track of that, so thank you.
On just another note, know that just like the judge said earlier, on September the 2nd, we did receive more clarification on what could and could not be used. So just keep in mind that this grant is a very fluid grant and it's evolving every single day.
It is a work in progress.
TDM has not had any response so far from what the Treasury put out on September the 2nd. And so I just want to be clear that there may be changes from this moving forward.
Okay.
Also, one of the things on September the 2nd that was said was that we cannot do across-the-board raises. So just when it says in here, each position must be evaluated, we must stick to that.
Now, the good news is that TDM, the Texas Department of Emergency Management, is the governmental entity that initially oversees this disaster relief that is actually being funded through the federal government. And we took the recent order with regard to KCSO and the jail and provided a copy of that to TDM, and we got back a good report that says it looks like it's in order. Now, you know, things may change, but right now we've got written documentation to support what we've done. We've run it past the appropriate governmental agency, and right now it's a green light. All good.
Good.
Okay, then I'm going to make a motion that we approve the hazard pay policy and hazard pay process
With changes,
as revised.
okay.
Second.
Okay, so I've made the motion. It's been seconded by Commissioner Harris to approve the hazard pay policy and process as presented. Is there any further discussion? Okay, those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. I think we're off on a good foot. Okay, let's go to item 1.2, which is a clarification. It's consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to clarify court order number 38277, which is an order to designate hazard pay for the sheriff's office and county jail during disaster declaration. Mr. Letts.
Normally, I would address this during
Orders?
court orders, but this one's a little bit different, and to make it a little bit simpler, the language that's in italics and underlined is what is recommended that we include. First one is to include the bailiffs and courthouse security personnel, and the second one down towards the middle is related to the overtime rate per county. We just added the language per county policy regarding overtime and compensatory time. The idea here is that the employees will take compensatory time if at all possible, as opposed to getting the overtime rate. And that's and I've gone over this with the sheriff, and I think he's okay with it. He's not. Anyway, but this is a little bit more of a change than just a correction of a court order. That's why I wanted to bring it to the court for clarification, and then it'll be approved during the court orders. So I wanted to.
But all it really is a clarification of the intent of the policy. Questions came up as to the bailiffs because even though they work for the sheriff, they're under courthouse security. If you look at the job descriptions with HR, we wanted to make sure there was no confusion about that. And when you talk about the regular comp policy that we have, the intent is that we're not going to pay overtime pay on this higher rate, on this hazard pay. That's the intent. And so we're trying to make that up with compensatory time, which is standard county policy. So that just gets everything on the table so everybody knows how to work with this going forward.
Do constables come under,
They're not eligible. Elected officials are not, no elected officials are eligible for this policy.
But this is
Deputy
emergency
constables
services.
could be, the constables are not.
That seems a little weird, on the surface. A deputy sheriff and a constable. Constables are doing,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get
But the sheriff's not eligible
in the
either.
sheriff's sandbox there, but, they're out dealing with the public just like
Yeah.
deputy sheriffs are and everything else, so,
But the
I
sheriff,
agree.
the sheriff himself is not eligible.
yeah.
But-
And so where is it that says elected officials are not eligible?
That's right out of the federal act.
It's one of
Because
the-
there's always a presumption, they don't want elected officials voting themselves a bunch of money.
Okay, well, okay, all right, so that's it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
period. It's a framework we're working, all right, thanks.
that's just government.
Yeah,
And I don't think we need to take any action on this here. It can be
Yeah.
modified during the,
Good.
when we go through court orders.
good.
Just 1 second. Can we go ahead and add the bond supervision to that also? There's one, a CSO position that's paid under bond supervision.
So it's including bailiff, courthouse security, or bailiff,
Courthouse security,
courthouse
And bond
security, and bond supervision.
Of anybody that's paid, they're all paid under either the sheriff's office, the regular sheriff's office
Go to the
budget.
microphone.
I'm not,
Everybody needs to watch YouTube on this, see, because you
I'm
can't
not
hear
sure.
people in the back of the room.
I'm not sure what she means paid under bond supervision unless it's something inside a budget, because, it's number 10 is, or Fund 10 is general fund includes sheriff's office and jail budget. Fund 29 is where it separates out a little bit with courthouse security. Okay, it's still part of the sheriff's office, but it's courthouse security, so I can understand that. But I don't have anybody that's just dedicated to bond supervision. They're corrections officers or those clerks. So, I don't care. I just don't see that.
Okay, we think it's an open position that's in the bond supervision fund, and that there's not anybody in there right now. It's just, we use the department schedule, I guess, from HR, and so it's been identified in there. So there's no need to put it in there.
Okay. Well, the one thing that I would like to make sure we do before we get off this topic, this agenda item, is we've expressed our intent behind this order to include bailiffs and courthouse security, and for overtime to be handled regarding the county comp time policy. And I would like to make sure that this court approves that that is the intent of the policy going forward.
Yeah.
I see nods of heads, and I'm good with that. I'm not saying we got to have a motion, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, because we've got people out there that are relying on what we're doing here today, so. Okay, then let's move on to item 1.3. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the scope of the local Public Defender's Office Committee to report to Kerr County Commissioners Court. Well, we've got caught in a perfect storm with COVID-19, the blow-up that we had, and we probably got a little bit ahead of ourselves with regard to the Public Defender's Office, because we went on the TIDC, the Texas Indigent Defense Commission schedule, for our application that we filed and for their committee review and then their final award, which I've already reported. And so, in visiting with various members of the committee, and including Commissioner Letts, who's a de facto member of the committee, we're trying to get input as to exactly, this is the committee that is going to work on incorporating this new department. We're going to have 31 employees. This is going to be a huge department coming into the county. And we're going to have to work with 4 other counties to do it. The PDO contemplates they're going to have a 5-county board or committee putting together how they're going to do their interlocal agreements and all of that, which we're trying to get going pretty much simultaneously with this local committee. But we've got to get caught up on how we're going to work with the counties. So that was really the purpose of putting this on the agenda, to get some clarification.
One of the, I talked to the judge about this a little bit. One of the concerns I have is budget. We're at the final minutes, or not seconds, of finalizing our budget, and I haven't seen a specific position schedule as to what we're going to pay all these people. And this isn't going to be an emergency, so we've got to figure that out in the next couple of weeks. And there may be some numbers in there. My big concern is, or one of my big concerns is, we have attorneys in the DA's office, we have attorneys in the county attorney's office, and now we're going to have attorneys in another department. I think there needs to be some equity between what we pay attorneys. And I, for years, have been concerned that the DAs seem to pay at a different schedule that we don't have a lot of control over sometimes.
Elected official.
Well,
Well, but we still fund their budget.
we do the budget, but there's always been discrepancies there, and some of their staff gets paid higher. They have investigators, and I've never totally understood how all that gets through the court, but I don't want that situation to happen with this department.
Good point.
And I think that we need to be very careful that we're not setting up a pay system where all of a sudden county clerk, district clerk, county attorney's office are losing all their employees to this new department because we're paying more over there. So I think there needs to be equity there, and we need to work with the other counties in determining that same thing.
Right.
Sure.
So
And if you recall, back when we were doing the application process, this was an issue that came up. And we actually went back to the TIDC, Scott Ehlers, and revised downward the salaries that were in the initial report. And when we filed the application, and I guess Callie said, but when we filed the actual application, we had adjusted those salaries to be more in line with a 5-county comparison. And but I think that's something we want to make sure that our local PDO committee oversees and reviews to make sure that that's exactly what we're doing. We tried to do it in the application, and I know we moved the lowest attorney salary down to $57,000 because for that very reason. I know we did that.
Okay.
Now, I would also point out that I don't know how soon this PDO is going to be fully staffed.
Right.
But that's a good point, Commissioner Lewis. Good point.
But we just need to make sure that, we've been, as the judge said, sidetracked with COVID, and all of a sudden, we're at the end of the budget cycle and we have a new department we're getting ready to fund.
Could that be part of their study that we're going to have on positions and salaries?
We've got to do it before then.
So that's the problem. We have this department. Some of these people will be employed.
Yeah, but we can look at
Right.
guidelines.
Sure.
Right? Yeah,
But we certainly want to include them in the study.
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's my question. That should be included in the study.
Yeah.
But I think what we're talking about right now is something that we need to do before we get that study, because we're probably not going to get that study until
Right.
sometime in the fall.
Right.
Ms. Shelton?
As far as the budget, it's a grant that hasn't been accepted yet, and so once we do the formal acceptance of the grant, at that time, we'll be bringing a budget to you based on what that grant application was and what the grant award was.
And that will be a line item detailed budget.
It's the auditor, I cannot think of the local government code off the top of my head, but there's a separate one that deals with grants, because it will be new revenue coming in.
It's new revenue coming in, but it's also, we're paying 20%.
Right.
Right, so the 20% would be, again, once we actually get the grant, we will be lowering the ad litem attorneys, the court-appointed attorneys, to make up for the it's somewhere around 260,000, I believe, is
Well,
what we're gonna need.
And I want to clarify for the public before we get too far down the road, we pay our pro rata share of the 20% matching grant.
Right.
So we're going to pay about a third of 20%, something like that.
First year.
So this is a huge savings for the county right now.
And
So
those other counties being involved brings up what Commissioner Lett's point was, is that we don't want to lose from departments in the county to this.
Right.
And I know that that our partners in this don't want to have that same problem either.
Sure.
So they're going to need to be, have input in that pay.
Coordination. And then there's other things, we just need to really look into the budget, and we don't have a whole lot of time. I mean, I know the money's there, but, I know the grant has a budget in it, but I think we need to make sure that budget fits in with the county system. Everything from lease cop, all of the, the benefits. And here's a question, I said, just thought of this, on the benefit side of it, they get paid under our benefit program, not
That's right.
Kendall counties or
That's right.
Bandera counties.
And that's where there's a lot of cost involved.
Yes, there is.
And our benefits are different than the other counties.
But they're going to have to share in the cost of our benefits, the other counties.
Sure.
So
That's the
anyway,
good news.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about the total compensation package, and there's a lot of moving parts in this, and a short time to get it done.
Well, and other things that we need our local committee to look at, things we've talked about before, I've talked to the county attorney about, our personnel issues, and how we're going to handle that in our HR department, because this is going to be a lot of new employees. We're going to have potential conflicts of interest, and just kind of off the top of our head, I think we've all kicked this around a little bit. It's probably going to be that the PDO is going to have to hire outside counsel to handle those conflicts. And these are things that all need to come by recommendation from the local committee to the court to set the parameters by which we're going to incorporate this department into our government.
And I see this local committee making recommendations to the other counties as to how the long-term committee will be made up and function. What the hiring process of these people are. I mean, yes, it'll go through our HR department, but just speaking off the top of my head, I would think that someone from Kendall County and Bandera County or Gillespie, they may want some input into who we hire. But we just need to come up with how all this is going to work locally, and then present it to some of it will get presented to the other counties to see, hey, what do y'all think?
Well, are you talking about a kind of a review of where you're sitting and looking at resumes? You got a room full of people representing each county?
I don't know yet.
Well, let me just
So
kind of
that has to be decided, what's going to be the arrangement for.
Everything has to be structured.
Yeah.
let me just kind of tell you what's on the board so everybody knows, the public knows, and all the commissioners know. We're trying to get together the local committee next week on the 15th. Because we want to try to start that input first. On Friday the 18th, Scott Ehlers is coming in from Austin, the TIDC representative that we worked with. Judge Schuhart is coming up from Medina County, from Hondo. Andy Murr is coming over, I know, to get everybody together, and we're going to start talking about how to form this 5-county organization and what the documents, the organizational documents, interlocal agreements, how to do all this stuff so that we know what we have to choose from. Another thing that we've done is I've been working with Judge Schuhart, and I have a draft. We don't have a final draft. We're trying to put together a job description for this chief defender because we're going to have to post that position. Right. And trying to get that stuff together so that we can start interfacing with everybody here that we need to interface with. As far as the 5-county judges, we have all agreed at the ACOG meeting on the 23rd, which will be our first in-person meeting with ACOG in months down in San Antonio. And by the way, ACOG bought a new building down there, so we're going down to see the new building. But after the meeting, the 5 of us are going to meet and start talking about a schedule of trying to do this. We're talking about the possibility, I've talked this over with Commissioner Letts, of having a workshop, and maybe an all-day workshop, with a couple of representatives from each of the 5 counties, so that we've got varied input in how the 5 of us are going to work together. And I think in terms of the board for the regional PDO, I think the general thought is every county wants to have a representative on that board, all 5. And then it's got to be an odd number in order to be able to make a decision, so there'll probably be 4 other positions. And we'll have to talk about what skill sets we're looking for to fill those positions. One of the people that we have working with this on the local committee, who may be a viable option for the 5-county committee, is we're bringing Judge Williams out of retirement to help us. He's presided in 4 of those 5 counties during his career, sure. And kind of like the idea of having somebody that we know and have worked with helping us take this thing into the county itself.
So this being mandated, there have to be specific things required and specific things that are prohibited. And there must be other guidelines that go with it. I mean, we're not inventing the wheel here. I don't want us to reinvent the wheel, but we're somewhere in between those, it sounds like. We've
been sent template organizational documents and interlocal agreements that have been used by other regional PDOs. And we're meeting with Scott Ehlers to discuss those, kind of the pros and cons, what we like and don't like about the different templates, the forms that other people have used, to try to kick this thing off. But what's going on, if you can just see, we're moving quickly. And that's why we're here talking to the court. This is where we need to get your input on what's the input you want the local committee to do, and how do we go about trying to put this whole thing together? Because it's going to happen pretty quickly. The grant will fund October 1. Now, we won't be staffed by
Right.
October 1, but it will fund. And we're going to need to put a chief defender in there pretty quickly.
Now, the grant is not, it doesn't, we don't have to have anything to present. The grant is already available to us.
Yes, it is. And that's the
And
next
because
item on the
it's a
agenda.
requirement, Yeah, we don't have to show them that we're ready for it. It just sits in their council.
We've gone through the application process, we've gone through the review process, we've gone through the award process. The last process is item 1.4 on the agenda, and that is the acceptance process. Once we've accepted it, then those funds are earmarked for us.
So it's going to take as long as it takes to do it.
Right.
Judge, can you or we clarify who's on the committee? Did we do that back in May?
We've got,
And I know one person resigned. or
yes, we've
chose not
got
to.
Judge Williams, and that was part of my perfect storm too, is he had surgery. And we got him back in the office last week, which was good to see him, and he's getting around very well. But Judge Williams is the chair of the committee. We've got our county attorney, Heather Stebbins, is on the committee. We've got one of our prosecutors, Stephen Harpold from the 198th DA, is on the committee. And that's because they do the interaction back and forth with other counties. Dawn was unable to serve. She had something come up. We've asked Christine McIntyre, our district court coordinator, who works with Gillespie County and Bandera County, which gives us that fluid position. And then we've got Harold Danford, who is one of our local, very well-respected attorneys. So somebody in private practice who does criminal defense. So we've got judge, prosecutor, county attorney, we've got a court coordinator, and of course you got Commissioner Letts and myself working with them too. So it's, I think we've covered most bases. Yes, ma'am.
I've been making a list of the things that y'all have been talking about, just so that we can help the committee understand what the goal is. I've got budget, position schedule, personnel issues, conflicts, HR. The third one is the bigger committee for the public defender's office, who will it be made up of and how will it function. The fourth is the hiring, who will be involved in that process, how will other counties have input, what that will look like. And then the fifth one was working out the agreements with the other counties at following your meetings with the other individuals. Is there anything else that y'all have questions about or want guidance about from this committee before we get started?
Pretty much covers it. I think it's a good.
Okay.
If something else comes up, we can certainly expand the
Okay.
list.
So the first step, once you start hiring, is hire your head guy, I
Well,
would think.
And then let that person put the staff together.
we
At least
need
have
to bless
input.
that process. I'm not going to sit here and say that's the way it's going to be, because I don't know for a fact.
Yeah, that's
But
still
normally what I
pretty
would expect is that the 5-county committee board will hire the chief defender and maybe the office manager. I don't know. You're going to have the head of the staff and the head of the attorneys. But it's attorney heavy. And then I'm assuming that they probably will be responsible, just like an elected official or department head, for filling out the rest of it, which I don't see being up to full staff probably even by the end of next year. That would be optimistic to think that we got it up that quickly.
What, the one thing I would add is any kind of compliance issues that come up through this process. In other words, are there deadlines? Are there other kind of compliance issues? You have to have a certain number of people work on this, that, or the other. And that's probably just something for review. But TAC or somebody would know, or Tatum would know about that.
Well,
We want to make sure we cover that stuff. Any compliance stuff can get you in trouble.
And we did have one of those come up in the application and review process, and we had not provided for the ability to have people handle immigration cases. And got a call from Scott Ehlers in Austin to say, hey, did y'all intend not to include this, or did you mean that you would like to have it included? And so we went back and amended the application to include that. And I think we got an additional $35,000 or whatever in the grant just to be able to comply with those requirements.
Yeah.
But I think though, a timetable is another thing that, projected timetable is a good thing to keep deadlines.
Sure.
Well, and to that end, let me share some other information with you. I met with the owner representative for Iskena, is the seller that owns the Earl Garrett properties. And we had a long discussion about the ADA construction necessary in the building. And there are a lot of compliance issues. Trust me, a lot of compliance issues. Anytime we break into the surface, we're going to have asbestos inspections and the whole thing. But based on the time it takes to manufacture a custom-made elevator and to go through all the hoops to get your permits to start the construction and get the approval on the elevator plans and specs that get designed, and the length of time it takes Peter to get those completed, which we're targeting the end of the month. Bottom line is we're looking at probably not having the elevator completed for the second floor use and the second floor move in until probably February of next year. However, there is a suite of offices downstairs that they're vacating all their tenants in the building right now. And there's a suite of offices that we can move into and be able to plant the flag October 1, which is all good. But we're not going to be able to actually use the second floor the way that we want to until maybe March 1. But
Well,
that's
still, March of '21 is,
right.
that's moving pretty
Sure.
fast, really.
But that helps us with the timeline
Right.
of where we are.
Now, go ahead.
I just have a suggestion that during at least one of these committee meetings, the local committee, or the local committee, I think is what you're calling it. It might be helpful to have Diana with TAC, is it Diana or Diana with TAC, who's so helpful on a lot of the HR issues. It might be helpful for her to call in and be able to talk through some of the things that we might be worried about, and then we can come back and talk to the court about it and the bigher committee. So that might work.
It might be helpful if you could give her a call maybe before our first meeting.
Sure.
So that we have an idea of at least what's on the menu to choose from that we can have her help us with.
Okay, you got it.
Now, this is a little off topic, but I know we don't have to have an office fully functional to say we have an office, right?
Right,
You build it as you go.
right.
What's going to happen in that first month? We start taking cases and processing cases, or what? What's going to be the procedure?
Don't walk off, Bruce. You saw him start to walk off. We've got lots of logistical things. We're going to have to get the chief defender hired, and we're going to have to get an office manager hired. Remember, there are going to be 10 staff people and 21 attorneys. So we're not going to fill all of those positions, but we got to fill the office manager and the chief defender.
Is it at that point then considered functional?
I think we can have a photo op.
You're saying, when are they gonna start defending?
Yeah.
When are they
does
gonna
this-
start legal?
First
When
of
you
the year.
really pull the
We're
trigger?
guessing it'd probably be end of the year, first of the year before we actually
But there's
do it.
not, I guess my question is that we don't have to have a certain number of personnel before we consider it functional.
No.
We just have to have the office, we have to have the essential people to move forward.
And we're going to have to get the building wired for IT. That's going to be a huge issue for us.
Don't break any sheetrock.
Well, that just is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, I think part of your question, Commissioner, will be that there will be a period that we're going to be paying under our current system, local attorneys or attorneys we can get to take some of the cases, and we'll be doing some of the cases. And over time, it'll transition, we'll end up with all of them, except those that are in conflict of interest for some reason. But we will continue to use the line items in the budget for indigent defense, and it'll gradually get reduced over time.
Or
But
eventually go to that?
The transition period.
But other things that we've got to do, we got to find the furniture for this office. I've talked to the other counties, and we've all got some some surplus furniture that we can use, and we're trying to cobble that together. We've got to go in and figure out the configurations of the office. Are we going to have to put up a partition, or how are we going to do this? Probably going to be 2 lawyers to an office, something like that. And they're just logistical things that have to be done. You know, we got to get copiers. We got to get phones.
Sure. It's gonna be like living in a house while you remodel it.
Right, exactly.
Literally, it'll be some of that.
But fortunately, we're going to have the office space downstairs to be able to have all of the those logistical needs be serviced right there. And I think, in talking it over with the owner, I really agree with him that it's going to go a lot quicker by having the entire building vacated. And then when we go into our office space, he's going to be looking to us to pay rent for the part that we rent downstairs, which is in the grant budget. So, but we're going to have a busy fall and first of the year. But I'm looking at it by spring break, we ought to be in next year, up and running. Okay.
Is there any action on it?
Do we need to take any action on the local committee, or do we just
I don't
think
think
we're all
so.
good with the explanations?
Right.
Okay. Then let's go on to 1.4. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to accept the $2,503,264 grant awarded to Kerr County for a 5-county regional public defender's office from the Texas Indigent Defense Commission. And this is what we've been talking about now for months. And
Sure.
it's been awarded, and we need to accept it.
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Moser to approve and accept the grant from TIDC in the amount of $2,503,264. Any further discussion?
Question.
Yes, sir.
This is for the first year, which is basically 80/20.
80/20.
What's the projection for years 2 through 5
2/3,
2/3, yeah.
1/3, 2/3.
for each of those years?
Yes. Same for all of them. And
It's a
soon,
sustainable grant, I believe is what we call
say again?
it. A sustainable grant.
Right. Okay, so those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. It's a little after 10. Let's take about a 5-minute break and come back. We'll be back at, let's just say, 10 minutes after 10. It's 10:10. Wish the court will come back to order. Next item on the agenda is 1.5, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on approval of an agreement for services with Beckwith Electronic Engineering Company to provide fire alarm monitoring for the juvenile probation building located at 3501 Legion Drive. Jason Davis.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. What you have before you or has been submitted is a contract for services with Beckwith. The county attorney has reviewed and approved this contract with changes. Beckwith has agreed to the changes as well. There are 2 separate systems in the building. Again, we're talking about the 3501 building, the red brick building. One is the alarm and suppression system. It is actually separate from the control panel. Johnson Controls is currently the vendor that is working with, that provides inspections and repairs to the fire control, fire alarm, all of that type of, all of that system. The control panel that controls all of that is a company called Beckwith. And Beckwith has suggested replacing the panel because the current panel is outdated. The juvenile board has funded the replacement of that panel to the tune of about $12,500. It is being replaced. With that comes along, with the purchase of the panel, comes a 1-year service agreement. It's actually a service agreement, pardon me, it's 1-year monitoring. So when the alarm goes off, the notification, this is the contract for that notification, for that monitoring.
What's the cost?
The cost is $390, and I expect it will go up after that. I think it's probably an introductory offer. I don't know what the long-term cost is. $390 in this contract, but it's already been paid. It was part of the purchase price of the buying the new panel.
Oh, so it's included in the 12,000?
It's included, yes, sir. It's, no, we're not asking the court for any funds. The board's already paid that.
We're just approving the contract?
That's correct.
I move for approval.
Okay, motion's been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Moser to approve the contract with Beckwith Electric Engineering Company for the alarm monitoring system for the juvenile probation building. Any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Thank you.
1.6, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to surplus various items of furniture from the district clerk's inventory. Ms. Lance.
Good morning, Judge, Commissioners. I have several items to be surplused, some file cabinets, a desk, and some storage shelves. I did add 2 other items onto the list, so I need to give the county clerk an updated copy, and it's a 5-drawer filing cabinet and another 2-tiered shelf besides what's already on the surplus. And these could be used at your new defender's office.
I move for approval. That's what I was gonna ask is, what if when things like this that we can collect, quote, collect now for the new PDO, how do we, what do we do, how do we do that?
Well, come over and I'll show you where we got a bunch of them stored.
Okay, and where would that be?
The juvenile probation.
Okay. All right, so on things like this, and I think Don made a good suggestion, is that type of thing be at least stored over there until we can see what we need to do with it.
Good deal.
Okay, good deal.
You get a second? Second.
Who made the motion?
Me.
Okay. Motion was made by Commissioner Moser and seconded by Commissioner Harris to approve the surplus of the items of furniture from the district clerk's inventory. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Lance.
Thank you.
1.7, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to implement the Kerr County Employee Payroll Verification Form to be signed annually at the beginning of each new fiscal year. Ms. Doss.
Yes, good morning. We looked at this last week and we have removed a sentence and the county attorney is agreeable and Commissioner Letts is agreeable and just hope that y'all are too.
That's good. I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Letts to approve the revisions to the employee payroll verification form, which is signed annually. Any other discussions? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. 1.8, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve donating 4 spare Motorola radios to the Turtle Creek Volunteer Fire Department. Sheriff.
Remember, a few weeks ago, we donated some to the Center Point Volunteer Fire Department, some that we had that were older and extras, and that had 4 remaining. And I have a request from Turtle Creek Volunteer Fire Department from Chief Wesley Gordon saying that they would like for us to donate those to them so they can upgrade some of their older analog radios. So I'm asking for approval to do that.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, motion is made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Harris to approve donating 4 spare Motorola radios to the Turtle Creek Volunteer Fire Department. Any further discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. 1.9, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to approve a communication site agreement with Advantage Towers LLC, and this is for the Central Tower site for the Volunteer Fire Department's radio system. Chief Barton.
This is not a new project. This is the same project we started back in 2011. It's just that their contract has expired and all renewals have expired, so we just need to get a new contract in place.
No changes?
No changes in money. In fact, is probably somewhat less, just because of the escalator on it, I believe, had rolled up to so much a month plus 77 cents, and I think they rolled off to 77 cents.
I move for approval. Second.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Blue to approve the communication site agreement with Advantage Towers for the Volunteer Fire Department system. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. 1.10, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action regarding the East Kerr Center Point wastewater system service fees for nonprofit organizations. Mr. Moser.
Thank you, Judge. I was asked by some of the nonprofits in American Legion Hall in particular, in Center Point, if we could waive the sewer fees associated with the debt retirement of $20 per month for not-for-profits. And I think you're probably, on the service fees, I think it's $35 for sewer treatment services and $20 for debt retirement. I think if we were to do that, it would set a policy, which I think would be opening up to churches and everything else, and we'd be subsidizing that. So I bring it here for discussion. I'm not going to make a motion that we do that, Aaron.
And I agree with,
Well, we've got to retire the debt, though.
No, we're keeping the.
I know, that's why, so, I mean,
Right.
why wouldn't we
Right.
pass that through at this point?
Right. And it's also the entire county's paying the $20 a month, so,
Yeah.
I meant, for that. So,
Tell him that.
yeah.
it's a bad
Well,
precedent.
he was asleep, he didn't know. Yeah.
I was out there when that happened.
Yeah, so therefore, I just bring it forward that it's been requested, but I think it's not the right thing to do.
No action.
No action.
I'm not hearing a motion, so let's pass that and go on to 111. Consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to accept an order setting the salaries for the county auditor and assistant county auditors pursuant to the Texas local government codes. Ms. Shelton.
You have before you the order signed by both District Judge Emerson and Judge Patillo setting the salaries for the auditor and auditor's office for next year. This is in line with the budget.
Make a motion, we accept the order from the district judges setting the salaries for the auditor and assistant auditors.
And second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Baloo, to approve the order from the district judges regarding the setting salaries for the county auditor and the assistant county auditors. Any other discussion? Okay, those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Item 1.12.
You have before you the order setting the salaries for the 198th District Court Reporter and the 216th District Court Reporter. These are signed by Judge Emerson and Judge Patillo also. Both of these salaries, one of them is split with Bandera and the other one is split with Gillespie.
There's a difference in the salaries. Why is that? Does anybody know?
If I had to guess, it would be the length of service. Might have something to do with it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so length of service. Okay. Move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Harris to approve the orders from the district court setting the salaries for the 198th and 216th District Court Reporters. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. 1.13, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action on requests from appointed and elected officials to appoint clerks and assistants for their offices pursuant to local government code. This is what we requested a few weeks back. It was that time of year where we renew all of this. And we received, I think we've received them all at this point, haven't we, Jody?
I don't know if they received them all. There's a large.
We have a bunch of them, I know that. And this is to approve the ones that we received. And it's where they're authorized to hire their assistant clerks and other employees.
This is only for appointed elected officials.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I move we accept the requests from the various appointed and elected officials to appoint clerks.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Moser, to approve the request from appointed and elected officials to appoint clerks and assistants for their respective offices. Is there any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Item 1.14, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to allow use of the Hill Country Youth Event Center for a household hazardous waste event on September 19th. Mr. Harris.
Yes, this has been, what I understand, this has been an annual event, and this has kind of been kicked down the road a little bit because of COVID and what have you, and so we're finally agreed to do this, and it's in conjunction with the city, and we just need to be able to use this, so I move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Letts, to allow the use of the Hill Country Youth Event Center for a household hazardous waste event on September 19 of this year.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Do we know what is included in that list of things?
Yes, and there's a press release with all that on it that we're putting out.
Okay, so there's going to be a press release?
Yes.
Okay.
If it hadn't already taken place, but it was in the papers already.
Yeah, I didn't know if there's, because a lot of people don't
Sure.
take the paper, so maybe we
It'll
can
be,
put
it'll
that
be on
on.
the
We will.
website with
Huh?
the press, it'll be on the website.
It'll be on the
County
website? Okay, good deal.
And this
But
is,
it might be helpful just to bring it next Commissioners Court meeting, so that
Sure.
we can have it available if there's any questions about it.
Right.
and it's on the 19th, and the hours are from like 8 to 12.
Yeah.
It's not all day.
It's a really good thing, but I think the
Sure.
judge's recommendation, bringing
Okay.
it on the 14th, so we can make it public there.
Sure.
You sure
I'll do
about
that.
the
And the
hours?
website.
I was told it was 8 to 5.
No, it's 8 to
We've
noon.
never done it all day long.
Well, there's a bunch of stuff this year we've never done before, and we missed the last one, and they may be anticipating more
Yep.
stuff,
And
so. if
we'll
you-
bring that press release in and read it off, but yeah, I'm positive it's 8 to noon.
8 to noon, not 7 to 1.
No.
I would anticipate a large amount since we
Yeah.
missed the
Since
last.
it's been pushed back for a while, I do too. Good opportunity to get rid of all that paint and tires and whatever else.
Okay.
We voted on that one, right?
No,
5-0?
we didn't vote, but
Okay. Do I have, who's got,
Motion by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner West.
okay, then, any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. The next two items are also on this event.
Yeah, I was looking at the next one, states hours, and it's off from what I'd said, but I was going off something I read in the paper, so we'll clarify.
Well, I think,
What do you got there?
7 to 1.
Oh, 7 to 1.
Well,
no, that's the closing of Riverside, 7 to 1, the thing's 8 to 12.
Yeah. What the deal is, to get set up at 7, and then after we close at noon, to have another hour to clean up and get everything in order, so.
But just to clarify, what 1.15 is to take appropriate action to close Riverside Drive. And that's an hour before and an hour after the event.
move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Harris, to approve closing Riverside Drive on Saturday, September the 19th from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Is there any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. 1.16, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action to allow various Kerr County staff members to work the household hazardous waste event on September 19th.
And from what I understand, it's been customary, and Reagan Gibbons already on it. He's gonna get a lot of his crew to help with the event that day.
And some maintenance people help sometimes too, I think.
Yeah.
Oh,
But Reagan's coordinating all that.
move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Letts, seconded by Commissioner Harris, to approve the various Kerr County staff members to work the household hazardous waste event on September 19th. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Moving on to the approval agenda. 2.1, pay the bills.
For Kerr County, for today, we have $155,264.37. For the Texas Water Development Board, $59,256.37. The airport, $7,972.29, and county clerk fees of $4.
Move we pay the bills as presented by the auditor.
Second.
Motion has been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Harris, to pay the bills as presented. Any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. 2.2, budget amendments.
Yes, we have 10 today, one for county judge, non-departmental, county court of law, district clerk, sheriff's department, Constable Precinct 1, Road and Bridge, Indigent Service, and District Administration. And as I'm sure the court is already aware, as we approach the end of the year, we typically have a higher number of budget adjustments.
Makes sense to me. I move for approval.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Harris, seconded by Commissioner Letts to approve the budget amendments as presented. Is there any discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Late bills.
There are not any.
Thank you. 2.4, auditor reports.
There are not any.
Thank you. 2.5, accept monthly reports.
That's me.
Okay. And then finally, court orders.
And we have our court orders from our August 31st special session, the court orders 38276 and 38287. We already discussed the clarification or the changes to 38277, which is related to the hazard pay for the sheriff's office. The only other question I had, and I meant to ask Jackie this before, on court order 38280, it's approve and update Kerr County policy regarding employees' payroll policies and procedures as presented. I'm trying to remember what we did on that one because it's broad.
You're gonna have to give me the.
Read it again.
38280. And I'm wondering if it's the same policy that we just updated again.
No.
It's a different
No,
one?
this was actual policy language for the
Okay.
personnel manual.
All right. Okay.
That y'all did last week.
That's fine. Okay, I'm good with
Employee's
that.
responsibility for payroll verification proposed policy.
Okay. All right. And then on 38281, which is payroll tax obligation during disaster, the court order currently reads approved that upon the advisement of the Texas Association of Counties, this court take no action on deferring payroll tax obligations for Kerr County employees during the ongoing disaster until, and it reads, any mandatory guidelines come from the Department of Treasury. You shouldn't say any guidelines.
They're not mandatory.
They're not mandatory guidelines, so
They're
any
advisory.
mandatory should be stricken from that one.
Okay.
And for those two modifications, I'm moving for approval.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Commissioner Letts and seconded by Commissioner Moser to approve the court orders as revised. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Information agenda. Reports from department heads. Do we have any? 3.2, reports from elected officials. 3.3, reports from liaison commissioners.
I have something. A while back during our budget discussions, it was brought up whether or not we were required by law to fund the Historic Commission. I asked them, they didn't know. They didn't seem interested in giving me an answer, so I looked into it a little bit and decided that really is not my job as the liaison, so I let it go. And then they found out they weren't in the budget, and I said, well, you find out if we are supposed to do that, or try to help me out a little bit here. So they got kind of panicked, and while I think it's a good thing, just as a general rule, if any of these organizations you're a liaison to, you're here to help if you can, but not to hold hands, just to throw that out there. And I think that it's something we probably should fund. It's about, what is it, Tom, $4,400? We were talking about it this morning. Not a lot of money. They're always struggling to get money. But when you come to the court to get money, you should make a presentation and you should tell us why the people of Kerr County need to pay $1 for anything. Not just assume it's going to happen.
Or please send a letter. I say, or
I want
please
them
send
to
a
come.
letter.
I want them to come here and make the
Yeah.
case for it personally. If you can't do that, I don't think that you should really get any funds. It shouldn't just be a rubber stamp deal. But this year was especially different, and nobody got rubber stamped this year, including our volunteer fire department.
Exactly.
That protect everything that the historical commission preserves. So I just, I know we all get into a habit, and we all think it's all going to be taken care of, but there were a lot of people who got cut out of this year's budget. And you got to make a presentation, and it should be compelling.
But you are in favor of adding $4,400 back into the budget?
It's on the agenda for next month.
It'll be on the agenda, but I wanted to state that very clearly for everybody because, yeah, I'm in
Okay.
favor of
Yeah.
it. If we don't have our history, we don't know where we're going. So I'm a firm believer in it and I support everything they do, but procedure should be that you come and ask for
We
it.
can allow all the snowbirds to rewrite our history.
Yeah, we could, or we can just wait until, they rewrite everybody's history. That's
I'm just teasing everybody, really. That was meant to be humorous.
They're your neighbors.
I would like to set up, try to pick some dates for a couple of workshops. We kind of let subdivision regulations go on hold. We really need to get that moving. There's a couple of issues there, the drainage we really need to look at. We need to look at how the placement of the model subdivision rules get impacted, and combination of environmental health and planning and what they have to look at, and there's other counties around us have modified their rules so that if it's less, in some situations it's not a subdivision, therefore there's no planning, therefore there's no review by the OSSF department.
Yeah.
So I just think we need to set some dates. I think we can do it at a workshop in half a day, and or not half a day, a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours. So let's put this. We look at the calendar and try to figure out when we want to do this, or we can bring back some dates next time.
Yeah, maybe next one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just turn in dates to Jody. She
Okay.
keeps track of all of us.
Okay.
We just need to get that going, because as soon as we get that done, then we need to do the takings impact assessment, which is about a 60-day process. So we're already looking at 3 months down the road, and we need to get this moving.
At the end of the year.
We had a environmental workshop on the schedule till things got turned upside down back in March.
Okay. Any other liaison
Yes.
reports?
Y'all might not have seen it, but I had Jody send some pictures that Shane sent to me of the recycling trailer over at Maintenance and stuff. People just pile stuff all up, and of course it got wet, rained on. It's just, man, if it's full, don't dump it off on us. And it's just another headache they're having to deal with on top of everything else we were recycling. And I'm sure we weren't real excited to see a bunch of wet cardboard laying all over the place this morning in the driveway.
We need to fish or cut bait on recycling.
Exactly.
So we need to put it on the agenda or have something to discuss.
Well, I think we have already decided that. Didn't we already vote to?
We did decide.
Discontinue it.
I'm surprised.
To discontinue it is subject to approval that our grant obligations are
Right.
met.
Okay.
And it's my understanding those have been met, so we just need to, I just assume, through the end of this month or something, and that would be
I
it.
thought August ended the obligation.
It
So,
did, it was
to be
right in
honest,
I think it was
August.
kind of a mid-August
surprised when
date, but he was looking for verification. I think.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I think I made a motion to do it.
You did.
Yeah.
Yes, we
As
did.
soon as we forget.
Yeah. So, anyway.
Okay. Any other liaison reports? Okay, I believe we have one item on the executive session. Is that correct? It's an approved, it's a personnel issue,
Looks like it.
which will be a personnel matter under 4.2.
There it is.
Okay, so with that, it is 10:36, and the court will adjourn briefly, and we'll come back in executive session. Okay, it is 10:46, and we're coming out of executive session. And I believe there may be one action item on the agenda at this point.
Judge, I'll make a motion that we authorize payment for 40 hours of vacation for the Chief Deputy of Tax Assessor Collector's Office because she was not able to take this vacation because of elections, changes that were established because of COVID-related matters.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made by Commissioner Moser, seconded by Commissioner Letts, to approve the earned vacation request for an employee of the tax office due to COVID-related matters. Any other discussion? Those in favor, raise your hand. Unanimous, 5-0. Okay, there being no other matters on the agenda, we are adjourned.